Good evening and welcome to E2KGn30, our Enough to Keep Going newscast, where we hit you with some of the more interesting stories of the last week and then have you on your merry way in 30 minutes. It is Thursday, August 17th, 2017. The whirlwind of E3 is a few months behind us. The big releases of the autumn and the holiday season lay before us, so it's kind of a bit of a doldrum season here on the E2KG network, or as Samuel Taylor Coleridge would say, down dropped the breeze, the sails dropped down, 'twas sad as sad could be, and we did speak only to break the silence of the sea. Perhaps I'm being a little bit melodramatic, but it's been kind of a light news story, and that's why you also have me, Swiss Guard, as your host. I'm here with Zeus Adamus, Classically Stamus, and we did find some interesting stories this week, some lighter fare, and some perhaps meta stories on the state of the gaming industry in 2017. So, Zeus, how you doing?
Good.
I hit you again with the
microphone. Always, as I'm in the middle of typing the social media stuff. Good, very good. Yeah, it's a week. We're heading for the weekend, and so as always, we're here to recount the week in gaming news. Like Smith said, kind of a little light, it's very, I don't want to say it. So my take on news is always very much colored by what interests me. So one of the things we do on the show is it's not a generic news show like most other networks do, in terms of we don't cover stuff even if it's big, if it doesn't actually interest us specifically. So this week has been a lot of announcements of releases and pricing and things like that. So still things that were of interest to us that may not hit you necessarily directly in your wheelhouse, but hopefully there'll be a few tidbits here that will capture your interest.
Yep, this is a hobby for us. But if we enjoy it, we hope that you enjoy it as well. I hope that comes through. So our first story is from GameSpot, and it's Grand Ole Games giving away a free game, unfortunately, that has expired at the time of this broadcast. But they are also selling $3 piñatas of mystery games. So not this Monday, but the prior Monday, we had a lively discussion on the main core show about kind of microtransactions and the future of the gaming industry and how they might want to collect revenue and whatnot. So we talked about some different ways that they could sell games, and so this is appropriate. It caught my eye. So Grand Ole Games is offering you the chance to buy a piñata. So Piñata Madness for $3. You can get this piñata, which is a mystery box. So it's essentially the loot box at the game store. After purchasing one, you can open it and you find a game that carries a regular price point of anywhere from $6 to $45. So they're full games. They're not DLC, GameSpot notes, or anything like that. GameSpot notes that some of the possible titles include Pillars of Eternity, Shadow Warrior 2, Heroes of Might and Magic 5, Victor Vran, and Saints Row 4. So they're not, they're not completely just, indie titles out there. There's some fairly heavy hitters in the list, but you don't know what you're going to get. So, Zeus, would you be willing to buy a piñata for $3?
Yeah, no. I guess one of the things there are a lot of things that all of us, right, geeks, gamers, comic book readers, that we buy just because it's low price, and we're kind of like, it doesn't matter. I'm like that way a lot about Android apps, for instance. I just can't stand ads to the point now where almost every time I open up an app, even if it's an app that I've been using for 2 or 3 years, if I still see ads popping up, I just hit the, is there a price point to just make all these go away, and I'll just buy it. But I don't think I'm buying a pinata for $3. Because as much as I buy, just because it's ridiculously cheap and it kind of doesn't matter, I also don't like a lot of digital detritus and just things that I have that are tucked away that I don't even remember that I own. So, no.
I completely actually understand and agree. It's just, it says that if you don't risk purchasing the same game twice, so I guess that's a good thing. But if there's some games in there that I'm interested in, and there's games in there that I don't care about, it may only be $3, but I don't like buying things in, like you said, digital detritus. It'll just be there in your Steam list, or well, I guess it'd be your Grano Games list, like haunting you that you made a mistake, and reminding you that you didn't get what you wanted. So for all eternity.
Right, and I already kind of have that a little bit with Good Old Games, and I am a Good Old Games user. So, one of the things is Falcon, the Falcon series. I talk many times about the glory days of Falcon 4.0, and I still have a version of that game that I got from Good Old Games, but I got a bunch of other Falcon stuff with it. Like, there's no way to hide it. Like, I'm never going to play those 3 other iterations of Falcon that I got with the bundle, but I do want Falcon 4.0. I just, you know what? Software developers and Swiss, you're a developer. I work in the industry and work in design and architecting. We need to unilaterally agree to give users the ability to tuck away things that they don't want to see, right? From the aspect of things that they purchase or configure. If it's something I buy, I should be able to choose whether I want to see it in my inventory or not. Same thing on Steam, and maybe it's there and I just haven't found it, but Steam has this confounding thing, and Swiss, maybe you've seen this, where if I have 2 gaming PCs on, when I go into the installed submenu of my library or inventory or games list or whatever, I see every single game that's installed on both of those PCs. Now, when I go to hit play, I can elect to play a game as it's installed on the PC that I'm at, or stream it from the other system. But I never want to stream a game installed on another PC. Like, I don't want to be forced to have that clutter up my view screen just because that other PC is on. So, I mean, great Scott, if there's anything, there should be an ability on Steam to just click a button and say, only show me the games that are locally installed. So, things like that are frustrating.
Yeah, just be user-friendly about it. But my thoughts immediately jump to the Xbox and PlayStation dashboard UIs. I'd like more control over what I see and what I don't see. I do not want to see advertisements for NBA TV or whatnot. But so yeah, pinatas on sale until August 21st. Pinata Madness runs until August 21st. So our next story is going from mystery boxes to giveaways for pre-orders, but you know what's coming, so you can make an informed consumer decision. So you have a story about pre-orders for Uncharted. Alas, I think we lost Zeus.
No, sorry, I was double muted, which I have done on this show before, because I have a mute button on my Blue Yeti microphone, and I have the software mute button in Google Hangouts. So obviously, Uncharted Lost Legacy is about to come out. I don't know if I actually have the release date right in front of my face. August 22nd. So actually comes out next week. Lots of people are excited. That may very well be the game that I buy next week. And I'm not even a big, huge Uncharted fan. I am an Uncharted fan. It's just I haven't found the time to squeeze into my gameplay to ever fully go through any of those games. But it comes out next week, and usually for titles, AAA titles that are highly popular, there's 59 bajillion different packages to buy when the thing releases. You can get the early access pre-play that lets you actually start playing the Friday night before the official release date, depending on what country you're in and what time zone you're in, and depending on whether or not your Steam account, so there's there's all sorts of variations. There's actually not that for Uncharted Lost Legacy. Uncharted Lost Legacy, duration-wise, is a little less than a full game, arguably. I forget the number of hours of gameplay that are theoretically in it. But it was originally planned as DLC for Uncharted 4: Thief's End. If you bought certain levels of that game, you will be able to download Lost Legacy for without any additional charge. So if you bought the Uncharted 4: Thief's End Digital Deluxe Edition, Uncharted 4: Thief's End Triple Pack, or Uncharted 4: Thief's End Explorers Pack, then you're entitled to Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. But the only thing that's really available as an extra, as a digital tchotchke, for along with Lost Legacy, is Naughty Dog is working on a Jak and Daxter release that they're going to bring to the PS4. It is Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. So in most cases, if you pre-order Lost Legacy, which you can still do right up to the release date, I think in actuality 99% of the time, prizes, extra things that you get for pre-order qualify even many hours, sometimes days after the actual release. So pre-order is a loose and fast term these days. But if you do pre-order Uncharted Lost Legacy at many places, including Amazon, Best Buy, Dell, if for some reason you bought games from there, GameStop, Newegg, PlayStation Store, Target, then you will also get a digital copy of Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy for PS4. And I guess that was actually a previously released, a version of the previously released game. I don't know if there's another Jak and Daxter game that's coming out later, or if this is it. I think this is just a little thing to get you warmed up and nostalgic about the Jak and Daxter series. And then I think there's another game coming later. Not positive, but that's a nice little memento you will be able to add to your purchase. So Lost Legacy, big game, very much in the zeitgeist, very much on people's minds, particularly PlayStation fans and fans of that series. There was another game that launched earlier this year that had a huge ton of buzz around it, and everybody swore it was the bee's knees, and it kind of wilted out very quickly. I would argue faster than The Division did last year. So, Swiss, you have a story about that game.
Yeah, this one comes from Eurogamer, and the game is For Honor. So, interesting game from a gameplay perspective. Medieval kind of arena combat type thing, fighting game. As Eurogamer notes, it's been, quote, marred by technical issues. So I think the community hasn't been entirely pleased with how it's rolled out, but there's still quite a bit of a following. And Ubisoft set up a tournament to promote the launch of Season 3 of the For Honor, content, online content. The problem was that the winner utilized an exploit in the game, a well-known exploit that has not been patched for a long time, to basically win the tournament. And according to Eurogamer, he wins without dropping a set. So he didn't just skate by with this. He just blasted through the tournament using this exploit. So the fellow's name is Jacob Palin. And the exploit they mentioned was what's called in the community unlock tech. So it's basically when you target lock and then apparently unlock your target, or let's see, unlocking the target lock on your opponent, attacking, and then relocking. By doing that, there's a glitch in the game apparently that makes your attack unparryable. Some attacks become faster. Some attacks avoid the recoil effect, I guess. I haven't played For Honor, so I don't know the details on the nuances per se of this exploit. But basically, it sounds like it makes the game vastly unfair. So they've been talking about this for a while, and the developers haven't fixed it. But this guy, there's a cash prize. He's going to play the game the way it's built, and he won. So there's a bit of a debate. Ubisoft apparently wasn't even that happy to give him the trophy. Um, so I don't know. Like this is a hint at the future of esports, right? You have a game with an exploit, and somebody, uses it to win. Do we need game referees, or how do they define what's the right way to play a game? Can is it just as code? Is it like you sign your end user license agreement, software as is, and you accept the policy before you play? So I just thought that was an interesting little twist on this esports upcoming landscape. What do you think, Zeus?
Yeah, and I'm glad you offer that perspective on it. And again, these are a couple of engineers / IT guys, right? And as I frequently say, and often with much vindictiveness and anger, patch your stuff, right? There's absolutely no excuse for holding a tournament and promoting it for your own game and failing to close a quality escape. That's just inexcusable. And to be quite honest, I feel like they owe him the money, and I feel like he won it. He played the game in a manner that was permissible based on the current state of the game. It's arguably kind of the equivalent of a trick play in the NFL, right? And yes, while that's refereed, and I can see using that kind of application in this case. In a lot of other cases, you don't necessarily need a referee because it's software based, and the software kind of is its
built
own
into the game,
right? So, simply put, Ubisoft, patch your stuff. Right? So our next story is just another one of these game release announcements. There is a game. So first of all, this is over on Kotaku, entitled World War I's Giant Mechs Are Coming, and so a game called Iron Harvest, which looks a lot like it's steampunk, kind of Warhammerish meets Company of Heroes. It is set in the same universe as a game called Scythe, which actually I didn't play, and actually I'm not familiar with. I believe it's an indie title, but this game, Iron Harvest, squarely in my wheelhouse, looks great. You have kind of standard infantry troops as well as these Warhammer-like mechs of different sizes. As I mentioned, this is a real-time strategy game. What I found particularly interesting is that the mechs are of different sizes and can be employed tactically in different ways beyond just munitions. So some of the mechs are smaller, but can fire at a very high rate. So they have a means to actually be very effective against larger, more powerful mechs. Some of the mechs are two-legged. Some of the mechs are four-legged. In one case in this trailer, you see one of the smaller, faster mechs sprint at and shoulder barge a larger two-legged mech, which actually shunts that mech sideways. And the smaller mech is able to keep its shoulder on it and push it through a wall, causing it a pretty decent amount of damage. Now, obviously, toe-to-toe, face-to-face, the larger mech with a larger caliber weapon would have won that face-off, but the smaller mech was able to outmaneuver it, use the other larger mech's weight against it, and push it in a given direction. So I love that additional nuance and level of granularity and fidelity in the tactics that can be applied. I love the fact that it evokes a lot of Company of Heroes gameplay, which in my mind is one of my top RTSs ever. I loved Company of Heroes. It was marred only by the fact that it was a game that launched in the early days of Windows Vista and DirectX 10. So you had to find the right system to play it on, where the NVIDIA drivers or AMD drivers would actually work well. But the game looks sharp, so I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. I can't remember the developer or publisher's name, and I also don't think we have a solid release date. But this is, I believe this is the second trailer for the game, so it looks like it's maturing and coming along fairly well.
Now, Zeus, I never played Company of Heroes. Did that have much in the way of like resource management or How Age of Empires-esque is it?
It didn't, and I'm wondering if you set me up with that question for an alley-oop, because we all know that I have some fairly religious beliefs about this. I now accept that the resource management mechanisms in RTSs, but still my favorite RTSs are the ones that don't have that. In my early days of playing RTSs on the PC, I just didn't like that at all. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I couldn't imagine why somebody would want that in their game. But Company of Heroes is one. It's a we call these RTS. It's really a subgenre. I would almost call it a real-time tactical game instead of a real-time strategy game. What you are given is I think you're allocated a certain number of forces at the beginning, but the main thing is it was one of the first games to instantiate kind of the domination point gameplay style that is very popular in big first-person shooters today, where in FPSs now you have these game modes where you just go and occupy and stand in proximity to a control point, and the longer you stand there, the longer you accumulate points, as long as you control it. And then once you're there long enough, it flips and becomes your point. Company of Heroes was one of the first major games that instantiated that type of gameplay design. And as you gain control of control points on the map, that accumulates kind of a resource uptick. And then as you gain reinforcement points, I think is kind of what they're called, or mechanically at least how they worked, then you can call in additional reinforcements, which maybe it's the same thing as it's in code. It's probably very similar to resource gathering, but it feels more logical, right? I could understand that the larger of a portion of a given beachhead or a town you control, the safer it is to maneuver reinforcements into the area. So it was pretty wonderful. It was very challenging and very tactical. So I was a big fan of Company of Heroes.
It sounds well. I'm gonna have to check out both games, I think. So we go from a new game coming out from kind of a relatively, I guess, anonymous publisher, because the article does not have it, to a classic of PC gaming.
Yeah, it's a classic in terms of lineage, right? So Quake Champions is actually a new game. It definitely falls into the window of this discussion we recently had, where there's just some kind of weird and new gaming business models that publishers are pursuing. This one is kind of stranger to me than the norm. So you and I have both played Dreadnought. I'm probably a little more invested in keeping up with that maybe than you are, because it has a certain gameplay framework that I really love, and it is really in my interest area, and I'm looking very forward to its full release, as well as I think it's called Skull and Bones, or Skull and Bones, which is another nautical, yes, which is Ubisoft's nautical warfare game that's supposed to come out in 2018. Quake Champ. So and both of those games not both of those games. Dreadnought has had a very long, extended beta. It was in closed beta for quite some time, and now I believe it's an open beta, and it's in open beta on 2 platforms, so on PC and PlayStation 4. Quake Champions has been in beta for even longer, and it was in closed beta, and then I believe it went to open beta. Now it's going early access, and I really struggle with understanding that third segment. I kind of thought like the whole point of doing an extended closed beta and then an open beta was so that you would have sufficient test time in the wild, that you wouldn't need early access. Early access almost feels somewhere in between greedy and unconfident, right? Like you still don't have the confidence in your game despite doing these 2 extended shakedown cruises, and so now you're going to prolong that experimental time period by going into early access.
QA.
So I will admit that maybe a wedge of hypocrisy in that, when just 2 news stories ago I was saying, patch your stuff, but I
understand.
Yeah. So early access will cost $30. That is going to actually get you the Champions pack, which includes, let's see, all of the characters available, early access exclusive skins, and 3 loot crates. When the game actually launches, the Champions Pack is going to actually be $40. Now, again, this is another thing, right? That has been a running topic on all of our gaming podcasts on the E2KG network. This is a free-to-play game, so what I don't understand and what I'm unclear on is if it's free-to-play, what do you get if you don't pay for the Champions Pack? And what I'm a little worried about, this is probably written down somewhere. I had an invite to the Quake Champions closed beta. I didn't actually wind up playing, but what I'm very afraid about is that it's bare bones like Killer Instinct was on Xbox One, or maybe even worse like Drive Club was for PlayStation 4. And the racing comparison is probably a little more difficult to get our heads around. But Killer Instinct. My problem with Killer Instinct is it was just so ridiculously complicated in all the different ways in which you could buy pieces and content of the game. I was just very frustrated. I was like, just sell me the game, right? Stop giving me these 1 character packs, 2 character packs, 3 character packs. But some weeks, this character is free, and if you play that 1 week, then you always have access to that character. But that only works if you do that. I'm like, just make the game free and then have a paid tier where you can just pay and get everything. So I'm a little concerned about that. Because the reality is if you have to go through the Champions Pack to get access to all of the game's current characters, and actually those buy-in prices give you access to all of the game's current characters and supposedly all future characters. So I would definitely just pay for that because I don't want to be nickel and dimed about characters
Right.
as they're added to the game.
It feels almost like, do you remember a few years back when JCPenney decided to go like basically everybody, we're just going to give you the low price and that's it. We're not going to do these crazy sales and coupons
Right.
and buy-ins, and their sales dropped. So people like getting a deal. So like you said, if this day I got my character for 99 cents versus $1.99, psychologically, maybe it works.
Yeah.
But we kind of already had that discussion. So
right. So you've got a news article with the one console and platform that we haven't talked about this show. So why don't you go ahead and take us on out with the last news story?
Yep. I don't think it'd be an E2KG show unless I was able to positively hat tip Nintendo. So Nintendo Switch, this comes from GameSpot, by the way. Nintendo Switch outsells PS4, Xbox One in US July sales. So the NPD group today put out its report for July 2017, and it said Switch was the best-selling console for this month. And I guess a lot of that was probably fueled by Splatoon 2, which was incidentally July's best-selling game.
Well, the other thing that's interesting, it's so funny, amazing that you are the highest-selling console the month that you actually provided sufficient inventory for people to sell your blasted console, which this is the first month that has happened since launch.
True enough. They do have another Splatoon special edition like with the Splatoon color Joy-Cons and stuff. I don't even think that's out yet, which I would have thought that would have been a launch thing. It may have been. But so, and I'm not meaning to steal your and DB's thunder with this financial news, but said July 2017 hardware sales were $182 million, rising 29% over last year. But that makes sense because we had a new console coming out. So they did mention that Switch and PS4 accounted for, quote, most of the increase. And this article did not mention the Xbox One. But that's also kind of, a given, since we got the Xbox One X on the horizon. So it's kind of, I think, a doldrum period for Microsoft here.
Yeah, it's definitely a chilling effect on people who are interested in buying Xbox until the One X hits.
Right. And I didn't pick this article, but this weekend is supposedly, there's a rumor that you're going to be able to start pre-ordering the Xbox One X. But
okay, yeah, I thought I saw a trail on that, and I didn't follow it to see exactly what they were going to be saying. But
they're expecting some sort of announcement at Gamescom.
Okay.
But again, from this article, they said this year's hardware sales up to 1.6 billion, up 20%. Wow. Not surprising, given we got the PS4 Pro and the Switch kind of releasing fairly recently. So yeah, it's doing well. Microsoft's Xbox One X really needs to hit the ground running strong, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So first of all, did they quote total sales numbers for the Switch?
I don't have the original article,
Right.
and GameSpot did not.
Okay. So so that's one thing I'm definitely interested to see. I'm wondering how much it has closed the gap on the Xbox One already, just out of the gate. But it's and this isn't my theory. I think I heard this on one of the podcasts I listened to. Maybe it was Game Scoop, or it may have been Podcast Unlocked. It was one of the IGN podcasts, most likely. I may be miscrediting that, so it could be. It could be any myriad number of podcasts. So it could have been Daily Tech News Show with Tom Merritt. It may have also been Tech News Today. I'm not sure, but some people have posited that a lot of what Microsoft is doing now is they've just already seeded the loss of this generation. That just mathematically, numerically, given the life cycle, and even with these extended life cycles that we've been seeing, starting with console generation 7, that it may not be feasible for them to catch up, and maybe they've determined that they need to be that it's not healthy for them to put energy into trying to solve that math problem. So what they're really doing is they're really staging for Generation 9, and that's why we're getting things like the big push on backwards compatibility, because that is a fan-winning, fan-facing, pro-consumer thing to do that doesn't necessarily generate a ton of revenue, maybe. So we're seeing that. We're seeing an improvement, I think, in the selection of titles that are coming up available in Games for Gold. And both Xbox Live and PSN, PS Plus have definitely had periods where they have dropped off on the quality of those titles, and the utility and usefulness of those titles and interest. And they're both picking up a little, but I feel like the acceleration arc on the Xbox Live game selection is a little better than PSN is showing right now, and I expect that to continue. Then you add the One X and the One S, and if you can do some price favorable things, it's tough because you could potentially cannibalize sales. But between now and the Xbox One X launch, prices are definitely favorable for the Xbox One S. It's a $299 console, maybe a $350 console for the 2 terabyte units that you can sometimes still find. But when that thing goes on sale, it's a $199 to $249 console, and that's an incredibly favorable price point for hardware that is still arguably some of the best on the market right now, and comes in a smaller, pretty svelte package that looks really good on your entertainment center. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if Microsoft is playing the long game. Again, they are not as financially challenged as Sony has been in the past. Sony is doing better, but they definitely had some years where they were getting their lunch taken in every division except for the games division, which resulted in them actually moving the PlayStation Network and their gaming network business unit inside the gaming unit, as those 2 units used to be separate. And also to provide some additional care and feeding, I think, after the hack of 2011. So interesting remainder of this generation, and it's already kind of time to start looking at how these corporations are poising and pointing themselves for Generation 9.
Yep. It's going to be an exciting autumn. All right, so we are about 34 minutes, I think. So did pretty well. Still overshot our target, but we enjoy chatting. So for Agasicles Stamus, I am SwissGuard, and I wish you all a pleasant evening and happy gaming. Good night.